There's that funky slide guitar music. Comes on every Monday through Friday, and I don't know why my picture... Oh, there we go. Comes on every Monday through Friday at Live 5 in the Blippi Network, Rumble X, YouTube. Check us out, subscribe, type in IE Newswire on Rumble. Man, what a day. If you wouldn't... It seems like it piles on more and more and more each day, but some of the things that roll by our radar screen, and we'll get into them in a bit, Jennifer, more on the, maybe we'll get to the Jenny Poo and more is breaking out on the grifters, the new grifters. I guess they're going to take after the Clintons and build a mass empire on us. The California fraud and hospice, remember we were all told we were racist and all that. We'll get to that in a sec. Gavin Newsom's war on oil companies. Plus, we'll check back over 2 years ago. No, 6 years ago, we had Pop, my dad, Pete Bleckert, on. And this would have been his 86th birthday. This is the second one he's not had here on the top side of the grass, as he would say. And we'll check in with some of the memories we had of him on 6 years ago today. I want to start, and I had the lead story on with Jillian Michaels. It's on Newsom, but it's really more, it could be role in California too. I think so many of us feel what's happening in California is incompetence or negligence. I no longer see it that way. I really don't. I think it's deliberate and on purpose because there's no way, just no way, anybody's this stupid. And she's right. Nobody is this stupid. Remember when we were all called racist, white hillbillies, when the hospice, the hospice fraud moved to Los Angeles? Newsom was jumping up and down, Buffoon Bass, the whole crew. Mad Maxine was out there, this couldn't possibly happen. Well, this turns out from CBS News investigations, we visited Ground Zero for hospice fraud, Los Angeles, and this is what we found out. It's by Rachel Gold, Laura Geller, Adam Yamaguchi, and Karen Graham Cates. It was published today. CBS investigations came out with a little different take on this. Let's roll the video tape.
CBS News, do you mind opening the door?
A CBS News investigation found it is ripe for fraud, especially in California.
Yeah, you can't throw a rock without hitting a hospice.
Hundreds of red-flagged providers vanishing overnight.
Well, there's no hospice there.
Companies accused of overbilling.
How does that make you feel?
Real patients being denied care.
Really sad, because I talk to them every day. I'm sorry.
Costing hundreds of millions of taxpayer dollars.
You can't explain that. There's no explaining that.
What's being done about it?
Is my government doing anything to protect my taxpayer dollars?
I share it. I have the frustration.
And why it's costing so much more than money.
It makes me lose faith in the system that is built to protect us.
Finding fraud. Finding fraud in the hospice deal. It's almost, we were told it's impossible. It never happened. They're making it all up. They're just a bunch of racists. You see with the CBS investigations finding fraud, they dug into it. CBS News, for crying out loud. St. Hillbilly Roy over there, whomever. Here we go.
Oh, you got a point. Woo, that was great. Let's do it again.
Lynn, you are old and in hospice, so I would be a little bit more proud about my accomplishments, but
69-year-old Dr. Lynn Ianni just ran me up and down the pickleball court. But 2 years ago, she was, according to Medicare records, dying in hospice care.
That's right. 69, 2 years later, after she was supposedly in hospice, dying, here she is playing pickleball out in Los Angeles.
I was in treatment as physical therapy, simply because I had had a kind of an injury on the pickleball court. The administrator at the office was like, they're not going to pay any of your claims. And I was shocked. They said, you're in hospice. And I said, what? What are you talking about? Are you kidding me? Do I look like I'm in hospice? She goes, no, I know you. And when
Ianni's Medicare number had been stolen and used by a company to fraudulently enroll her in hospice care, which she obviously didn't need. That meant Ianni had no coverage and no easy way of getting unenrolled from hospice.
Obviously, this was a major hassle. Lots of phone calls, lots of paperwork. What were the medical consequences?
I was terrified. I mean, you know, something can happen. That's why you have health insurance of any kind. And just to think you're literally without coverage because of some ridiculous fraudulent thing.
So she was out of health coverage. When you're in hospice, you have no health coverage other than your hospice care. They don't operate, they don't do anything if you're on your way out. You're on your way to looking at the roots of the grass, as Pete said. You don't get any treatment other than whatever, medications or whatever they're trying to make you more comfortable in your last days of life.
Industry ripe for fraud, especially in California. Companies accused of overbilling, real patients denied care, and it's costing hundreds of millions of taxpayer dollars. The hospice Ianni was fraudulently enrolled in is called Fortuna. When we called, no one answered.
The mailbox is full and cannot accept any messages at this time.
The state of California increased monitoring of the hospice industry 4 years ago, identifying the hallmarks of fraud. Fortuna has 2 of them, and it's hardly alone. CBS News analyzed every hospice licensed in LA County, more than 1,700, and checked for the same warning signs the state used, like multiple hospices packed into one building, or caregivers whose patients, supposedly at death's door, are discharged alive.
How many hospice patients, and I mean, you probably shouldn't laugh, hospice patients means you don't come out of very rarely. Maybe 1 out of 100 lasts more than like 6 months. But probably the recovery rate is way less than that. I mean, if you say the 5-year live rate, it's got to be almost nothing. Yet we were told that's all. Trump made all this up. There's no fraud like Minnesota or anywhere else. Never happened.
3 years after the state crackdown, which included a moratorium on new hospice licenses, our investigation found more than 40% of agencies still show at least 3 of these state-defined indicators of potential fraud.
So Victory Boulevard seems to be a hotbed of...
Yep, you can't throw a rock without hitting a hospice.
Sheila Clark, a hospice...
You can't throw a rock without hitting a hospice. Multiple hospices in one building. What do? Got them stacked up like cordwood in there? No, they're... And Newsom again trying to run out, we fixed all this in 2021, 5 years ago, blah, 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 blah. I don't think so.
This patient advocate took us to what she described as the ground zero for hospice fraud, a 3-mile stretch of Los Angeles that's home to nearly 500 hospice company offices.
There's one hospice here that hits all 6 of California's red flags of possible fraud.
Well, there's
Says
no
it's a
hospice there.
Legal office.
Yeah.
With a ton of mail just
Yeah,
sitting
look
there.
at this.
This agency, VML, hit every fraud indicator in our analysis and billed Medicare roughly $49,000 per patient, about 3.5 times the national average.
They need their curative treatment. They need their they need to be taken care of. They need to know that they can.
So, if you think the government is going to take care of you, Oh, yeah, that's how they're going to take care of you. They're going to line their pockets. Like Jenny Pooh, Gavin's wife, millions. Oh, and supposed nonprofits and salaries and everything. And they're making, she's making 300 grand a year, paying her other buddies another 300 a year. The fraud, 100, 200, 300 million dollars. And I'm sure that is very low. We've probably just been pop billions since they said they fixed it 5 years ago. Again, this is CBS. CBS, for crying out loud. Man, we are, and again, I got to agree with Jillian Michaels. They're not stupid. They know exactly what they're doing. They're fleecing. This is legalized theft of yours and mine taxpayer dollars. Well, this is the second birthday my dad, Pete Blecker Jr., if you want to. Pete was a nickname his mom gave him. That's a long story. But this is the second birthday. He's not been on the top side of the grass. It would have been 86 today. 6 years ago today, we had him on the show. We're going to run some snippets of that, the hour or close to it. And it was a typical Pete ending. Trying to put the hook in to keep you tuning into the show. But here's the first little snippet we got from 6 years ago today, which was Pete's 80th birthday. We go. First car he ran at Riverside on the road course. And this is the first. This car was built in 30 days. I've got one picture of it as we were building it. This car was built in 30 days, starting in December of 70. It was, and you had to be there. Back in the day at Riverside, you had to qualify the Sportsman cars, which is now the Xfinity Series, late model Sportsman division, that qualified a week before. And I think this particular race, there was like 100 cars showed up. And we were actually painting the car, and I don't have the pictures here. We had pictures of me and him painting the car, or him painting the car, me standing there watching it.
Holding the lights.
Yeah, I'm holding the light as he's painting the car. At midnight, Friday night, because you got to be there Saturday morning at 7 o'clock. So we're painting the car, shooting it at like midnight there to get it there. Now, didn't Fritz letter this?
Yeah, Fritz
lettered this. He just recently passed away. Fritz always brought all his sign painting stuff because he would paint especially at Riverside on Ontario, there was more than one person that usually showed up, with a car that, it was like this with the paint dripping off of it almost, and he would letter them in the pits and stuff like that. He was absolutely great. I mean, he was phenomenal back in the day with the old hand painting stuff. But back before vinyl and computers and stuff, guys actually hand painted these numbers and letters. They were true artists back in the day. But Harkey posted that on the post of that. That's just one. We got some of the more of the pictures of that. But do you remember was this in the qualifying race or the race itself?
No, I think that was in a race. Somebody run. I had to miss somebody.
It looks like because there's another car we can't.
That's going up into turn 6, and there's a crash back there, and I'm missing. I'm out into the dirt, getting away from them, trying to get into turn 6 because I'm headed uphill to turn 6.
Right.
You can see one turned around. I don't remember how many were crashed back there, but I was missing them all.
But yes, he did. That was a very, very, very poignant interview. We'll get to more of it as we roll on in the rest of this show. It was... You can see there's one guy spinning... We'll catch this. Trying to get a picture. There we go. Finally got us all on there. That was all of us. Stephanie was in on the show she was co-hosting back in those days. We'll pick up with this and much, much more on the rest of today's show. Yes, we will. We'll catch some more memories with Pete from 6 years ago on his 80th birthday. But, as we usually do, more from the ridiculous cycle of news that we have going on. Gavin Newsom's war on oil. Yes, we should go to dark. He's systematically, and the people, I've got to give him credit, of California, are voting and realizing it's Gavin Newsom who's raising the price of oil. This temporary deal, hopefully Trump puts an end to that war over there in Iran or whatever. Get the oil price did drop just on what he said yesterday, so hopefully he gets a message on that. This is going to stop the $5 gallon gas going to 10 from Gavin Newsom. Ashley Zavala put it out. 7 Democrats now are trying to backtrack, let's say, and say, oh, Gabby, you need to open this up. Blanca Pacheco, Maggie Krell, Emeralda Soria, Tim McEnor, Cecilia Aguilar-Correa, Anna Marie Avila Farias, and Mike Gibson. They're all putting this letter together, trying to get Gavi to say, hey, knock off the CARB regulations. Why weren't you cats down there in November at the CARB board putting letters out, like I was and a few others, saying, hey, don't do this? Oh, you were probably organizing the buses of the people, the 100 or more of them that came in and said, oh, we're all going to die of diesel smoke. Ashley Zavala further pointed out, all 7 of them in September voted and directed CARB to do what it was doing. So now what you see, your actions are coming up. Now you're saying, well, wait a minute, we shouldn't have done it. Oh, don't do that. Why does it take getting to $5, $6, $10, refineries closing? 2 just recently, Chevron's threatening to close, Marathon down in LA's closed. If that goes, we're down to 4, and then 3, 2, 1. Then what do? We're getting all our fuel from foreign sources. Like they said, we have no pipelines coming this way. It's beyond stupid. Totally beyond stupid what we're doing to ourselves. Yet we keep voting for these ding-dongs. Hopefully we'll have some, hopefully here in a bit, done the Roy plan. Top 2 in June to win. Getting Steve and Chad in 1 and 2 so we can at least have some sort of deal. But no, you'll see the sign, climate action, California climate action. Air Resources Board is defending. Now it's cap and invest. Now it's not cap and trade, it's cap and invest amid pushback from state lawmakers and big oil. The CARB nuts. Victor Manuel Perez, our supervisor down here, one of them, they want to keep this stuff going. We've only done it to ourselves. Let's hit another clip from Pete when he was 80 years old on the show 6 years ago today. Again, this is the second birthday he's missed. not being on the top side of the grass. Here we go. And he brought home two 20-foot I-beams, and that's where we laid the frame of that up in 1973. We stripped the car out, laid the frame up on that, started building the cage and all that. That car was, and like I say, that was the only car I think we ever built at Hubbard Street.
When I brought it in, it was a burnt car out of a wrecking yard. It was burnt,
Yes.
crispy critter. It was rusty, and oh man, it was a sad-looking piece.
Which I get to do that because that was the first car. And I'll show you. I hope we got some pictures of the first one that I stripped out. There's a good story behind that. But that was the first car because we built that because that was actually the second car. The one you see in the '64 Le Mans was the first one, but that we built down at Andy's shop down in Riverside, which I drove by there the other day. I went to Industrial Metals. The old shop is still there.
Yeah.
The old shop on North Main, and there's a good story about that too.
Yeah.
of that, but no, that was and I remember that because they got to help lay out. That was the first one, the old Le Mans, not that Le Mans, but the second one we rebodied on the old '57 was the one I first got to at 9 years old. I actually got to gut that car out, and there's a story behind that. But I actually got to help them lay out the cage on that and bend the tubing and stuff like that. But we basically built that car in the garage out at that. And that's kind of like, and we talked with Tommy Joe Martins, who's a current Xfinity racer. And that's the difference between racing today. Racing today, even at the NASCAR level, same rule that on that. And we talked with Tommy Joe Martin. Everything seems to be taking...
I raced against Bobby Allison, Red Farmer, I can't remember, two others that would get cars from other people. And we all raced on the Orange Show on that bull ring over there, in the same way at Irwindale, when Irwindale was open.
Bobby Allison, one of the top, 74 NASCAR Winston Cup wins, two-time champion. And he used to, when he would come out here, he would fly his own, he had his own twin-engine plane. He would fly from Hueytown, Alabama, when they came out to Riverside in Ontario, landed on the back straightaway of Riverside International Raceway. He would race in the Saturday Sportsman race. He would go and race at the Orange Show Speedway, the little quarter-mile bull ring, Saturday night. Then he would come back and run Sunday on the Grand National, now Monster Energy Cup series. And that's what I'm saying is you don't...
1 minute.
There is no... The camaraderie...
Yeah, he was there. Like I say, I was there at the Riverside Raceway from the first race to the last one. I watched them all. The best story I ever had was the first race they had out there was with the Cow Club, and that was in September of '57. And I'd cut school that whole week and worked out there at the racetrack, and I never thought nothing about it, and I was going to go to school the next week. And on Monday, my mom comes up and says, "Do you want me to write you a note? I saw you out there working all week."
That was the first race at Riverside that he was at.
30 seconds, Roy.
We'll have some more memories of that. That was Pop on his 80th birthday 6 years ago today. And as we said, this is the second birthday that he's missed being on the top side of the grass. We'll have some more clips from the show 6 years ago. And, of course, we'll thread them in.
Here we go, Roy.
The following is a paid program. Views and claims expressed are those of the program producer and are not endorsed by this station. Opinions expressed are not necessarily those of radio station KMET, its management, employees, or affiliates.
There's that funky slide guitar music that comes in every Monday through Friday, live at 5:30 on the Mighty Met, 1490 AM, broadcasting all over the Inland Empire and the aforementioned AM band. Join our vast video audience in the UFB Network, Rumble X, YouTube, or some of them or all of them. Type in iNewsWire, Roy Blecker, you'll see my nice smiling, shining face. CBS News did a great report. You can see it in our first half hour. Yeah, they called us all a bunch of racist white hillbillies and all that. But, you know what? Now CBS News is doing about all the hospice fraud, the hundreds of millions of dollars, and all that. And Gavin Newsom's trying to say, oh, we fixed it 5 years ago. And shut up. As Jillian Michaels said, we're not stupid. We've seen this story before. And we know you're doing it deliberately and on purpose. Just like your wife, Jenny Poo, maybe we'll get to it tomorrow, more of the grift. I guess they're trying to do Clinton 2.0. It's absolutely stunning. Gavin Newsom's war on oil. More climate change. CARB is digging in its heels, even though some of the Democrats now are starting to peel away from the CARB regulations that are driving refineries and the cost of gas to $5, $6, $8, $10 a gallon. They won't give it up until they've got us completely broke and destitute and dependent on them for a bowl of gruel and a tent. That's why they're getting the vagrants. They're saying, you know, that's your future. That's the future they have for you. While they, the 1.3, for the 98.7%, the 1.3% will be living like the kings in Saudi Arabia or whatever. Absolutely incredulous of what we do to ourselves. And we only have ourselves to blame on it. Because we voted these clowns upon clowns in. Almost every election. Hopefully this election cycle we will turn this whole stupidity around. We better. We'll have some more on that here in a second, hopefully. But, as they say, it's one of the ironies. They were paying for signatures up in Oakland for ballot access, it appears. We have some of the data that was going on. It's almost mind-blowing. They're showing parts of this. Here's some of the video of the people stacked up. They said they were paying $5 for ballot signatures. That is highly illegal. I don't know, I haven't heard which one it is, but this is a new interview coming up. And we're going to run deeper into this story tomorrow, hopefully. Maybe Susan Shelley will have it. But on top of the hospice fraud and the gas and everything else, and they've told us, oh, we have the cleanest elections we've ever had. Who in the hell are they trying to kid? More great news coming across the pike. As they say, Yamaha, great motorcycle company, is pulling out of California after nearly half a century moving their headquarters to Georgia. From Pierce Sharp in the California Post, as you're seeing it. How much more of this crap are we going to endure? Company by company, people, mass exodus, far and wide. Only New York had more transfers out than California. We had better get to, as they say, getting our ish together. Because if we don't, we're going to sink like a ton of bricks. Here's Ashley Zavala with Paul Mitchell, had Migaviglio and another guy on there, talking about getting 2 Republicans coming out of the June primary in California for the governor's seat. Here we go. We thought.
Republican, that Californians would have to choose between 2 Republicans as their governor?
Well, right now, using the more complex modeling and everything like that, it looks like about 25%. But really the way to think about it, kind of just for a layperson, is that there are 40% of the votes that usually go to Republicans and 60% of the votes that usually go to Democrats. We've seen several polls in which the Republicans are kind of tied a little bit. So if they tie and each of them gets 20%.
Notice he was trying to couch it, tied a little bit. No, tied a lot. Paul, you know it. And that more complicated model of 25%. Look, both Steve and Chad are 60% likely to come out, both of them. Swalwell's the best at 40%. So really when you use his numbers, and like I say right now, I'm over 50%. That the top 2 coming out of the California primary for governor are going to be Steve Hilton and Chad Bianco. But here's more from Paul.
Will one of those Democrats make it into that first or second spot? Will either of them get over 20%? We have not seen one Democrat in any poll get over 20% yet. And so the challenge is we could have a situation where those 2 Democrats, or the 2 Republicans make the runoff. And a 25% chance means that it's unlikely, but probably too likely for a lot of Democrats to deal with.
But to maybe tamp down the concern that Democrats have, how many of these lower polling candidates need to get out? Or is there one particularly that needs to get out in order to help with the numbers?
Well, getting out is kind of the past, because filing deadline Friday, the candidates that are in, there's 8 top candidates on the Democratic side and 2 top candidates on the Republican side. The candidates could still say, I'm going to drop out. But it's kind of like Hotel California. You can check out, but you can never leave because your name is still going to be on the ballot. And believe it or not, people will still vote for people who say they've dropped out. I did it myself. In 2020 primary, many of the Democratic candidates dropped out after the South Carolina primary. And on Tuesday, 3 days later, I voted for a candidate who had already dropped out. And there's a history of this. Leland Yee, who was running for Secretary of State, dropped out in 2014. He was under federal indictment and dropped out. Still got 300,000 votes.
So what Paul's really telling you, that he doesn't want to tell you, but he's kind of telling you, and he's trying to couch it, but he really knows, based on his model, the most probable outcome is going to be Steve and Chad. Now, that could change, but they're locked in with the Icky 8, as we've called them. They're going to be on the ballot, and whether they drop out or suspend their campaigns, like he said, the crook, Eel and Lee, dropped out and got 300,000 votes. So, if they drop out, they might not get as many votes, and if they throw their support behind another candidate, that support might, some of it. But again, I don't see it. I don't see these guys having any other option on the table, but we shall see. But if they don't, all the more merrier, because that's just going to make the odds of top 2 in June being Steve and Chad that much more probable. And, just watching the heads explode. We're going to run more from Pete's interview from 6 years ago on his 80th birthday. Old Irwindale Speedway, as you can see. The one that is, and if you sit in the top grandstands of the new Irwindale and you look kind of to the east, southeast a little bit, and you see a bunch of electrical wires and stuff over there in a electrical substation, that was right behind the back. That was the old 64. That was the first car that I gutted out, and that was the one. It was on a crash at 395 in Alessandro. I mean, the whole thing was wiped out in the front. When I was getting the car out, you know, you do that to get him ready to put the body on of that. I found a finger of the guy that was, I mean, the guy was dead on a doornail. I mean, I think he went through the intersection like at 80, 100 mile an hour. And it was something else. There's some of it. There's that same car going over the top part of that. There's the old jalopy of that. The pickup you see down there in the bottom right corner of that. That was his first race car going on. And it was very, very, very interesting growing up in that era. And I'll tell you what, it was some very interesting times. Here's more. Karen McCall, Johnny Horan, Jerry Dodd, and a lot of others. Like I said, over 39 comments and 70 some odd likes on it. So a lot of people still out there remember you.
Thank you. I didn't know I was going to make it this far.
Yeah, that's a pretty good accomplishment. 80 years sitting on the top side of the grass.
I started into this racing when my Uncle Harvey had a midget when I was 8 or 9 years old, and I was helping him work on that. And he got killed in 1951 in a midget. But I remember that's how I got started in. I was just a little kid too. I was probably it would have been about the same age Roy started out, 9, 10 years old.
Yep.
It's kind of a family tradition.
Yep, Zanesville, Ohio, at the fairgrounds. With the track, in the track in Zanesville, Ohio, where Harvey got killed, is still running today. It's still, and yes, it is. It is still there. It's still running. They're still racing there. What, 70 years, 60, 70 years later of that in Zanesville? Yeah, Harvey Bleckert. You can look it up on Racing Memorial. He was killed there in 1951. It's sometimes you look back, and we talked about some of the trials and tribulations with that family tradition, and you don't see it. Maybe you don't see that, at least I don't see it passed down as much of that. There could be good aspects of that or not. I tend to think not, but it was, again, some very interesting times. I did that so you could correct me on that. Oh, you ain't gonna believe the hysteria that's breaking out at UCR right now of that. But we rolled through some of the stuff. I'm going to do this. This is the first, one of the first cars you can see, and if you can zoom in on that. There's the pickup truck. This is a program from 1963. At the
35 cents.
Yeah, 35 cents.
I wanted to point that out.
Yes. You pull out some of this stuff. Admission, I think, was $1.
Wow.
To get in the stands.
Well, it's still cheap now.
And the deal. And you know what? You take the Orange Show, which is seat about 8,000 to 10,000 people. Back in the day, that place was packed.
Oh yeah.
You couldn't hardly get. There was nothing to do on that. We went through a lot of the stuff that was going on. There's a car. There's the first car, Riverside car at Riverside on that in January of 1971.
That's a sweet looking car.
Yeah, so 64 Le Mans of doing that. There's the 70 Chevelle. That was the last car he ran. I think that's the first race out in January. That definitely was. That was the first race in January of 74 for that car. The last one he ran the last race at Riverside in June of 75. Though, man, there's a heck of a story behind that whole deal. and got him out in the lead on short pitting. I think I was like 13 years old. I came up with short pitting, which is where you came in as they're throwing the caution flag. You come in, came out in the lead. Thing of it is he hit a car coming out. The guy, they used to have a guy with a stop sign at the end of the pit road. So he's coming out. We fueled it up, got it out, ready to go. The stop sign guy, instead of go ahead, stopped. The guy in front of him stopped. He barely clipped him with the fender. Came out in the lead. Herschel McGriff, who eventually won the race, and there was only a few laps left, was too far behind. He would have probably won that race, but they black flagged him and made us sit in the pits for a lap and a half to kick the fender in and put some duct tape on it and stuff. That was some of the memories. That was June of '75, that whole weekend, for a lot of reasons. Was very, 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 as they say, an interesting time. We'll hit another clip or two here. If I can cue up my right timing on this. Should add some more time to put all this together. But as they say, this is here we go. Here we go. Let's see what this is. We're spending God knows how many billions of dollars on running these campuses on that in the state of California if we can do this all at home.
Preach it.
It's like everybody else. They look at the money that's being spent on this foolishness. Just like when Trump, when Bloomberg and Sires there both were trying to take out Trump. Look at all the money they spent. All the people that made money on that deal. That made Trump's economy. Look at the economy they put money into that. $500 million from just Bloomberg for what he spent, and I don't know how many millions that Steyer spent, and they accomplished nothing other than employing a lot of people. They didn't accomplish their goal, but they did hire a lot of people. So you got to say Trump made a lot of economy move. So it's the same thing with this. All the people are jumping all around. The economy's going to go, and the stock market went up today. So what are they worried about?
I thought that was interesting because Tom Steyer, remember, he was running for president there in 2020. Now he's running for governor, going to drop another $100 million, and maybe he's one of the key components in the top 2 to June plan, because he takes that 10, he takes a 10% chunk. That's just that much more odds. Steve and Chad are going to get the top 2 out of this deal. But I thought that was ironic. 6 years ago, we were talking about the same thing with Steyer, helping, and Bloomberg spending all this money helping elect Trump. Maybe it's deja vu. Maybe this is our destiny. Who knows? We hope so. It's going to be something that we should look forward to. But it really is interesting to run back on this stuff and look back on it. And one of the things is to cherish the memories. Because when they're gone, and they're not coming back. And it's really fortunate. Most people probably don't have these types of things to look back on, or all the stuff, recorded history for being in politics and racing and doing this radio show and all this stuff. And the family being involved in all these sorts of activities, as you've seen for plenty of decades. But when you step back and look at it, make sure you make every effort to maximize every minute and every second you have on the top side of the grass. Here's the coup de grace, and this is typical Pete. This was the end of the show. We're getting close. So let's let it roll.
Well, he's sitting right there.
Close-up camera.
I think he's already seen it.
There you go. Yeah. Of the deal. No, it's absolutely astounding, the logic. I don't get the logic behind all this at all. of going on back and forth on this, because it's funny. See me move my head to the side and Stephanie's looking. That's the door. You're gonna know why here in a second.
It's absolutely stupid. I what he's doing. Good thing we went to the small camera.
Why did he leave?
I don't know. He probably maybe.
I'm trying to sing happy birthday. He's gonna do candles and he walks out.
I told you he's full of surprises.
Oh man, that's so. He knew that. I think he knew that was coming, because that's what he was getting set up for doing that, and he just up and walked out the door, and it was kind of a hilarious minute, and we still had about 2 or 3 minutes left to do on the show, but that was typical him, and he was full of surprise. You never knew what to expect. At least I didn't. Whether he was doing a speech at the city council or racing or any of the things like that, you could never predict. He was one of the few people I knew that you could never predict. You could never predict exactly what he was going to do, because he would always come up with something like that. I guess he didn't want to hear his happy birthday to Pete, but it was a heck of a deal. I'm kind of have to look. I was looking through the archives. I think there was one more show I did, but I figured I'd pick that one because that was 6 years ago today, his 80th birthday. And even when you look back at it, you can see a little bit of the signs of he was probably getting the brain cancer and stuff like that. You could see in his speech and stuff, the stutters and kind of getting the names wrong and things like that. But it was just slight, you didn't think, you always think, no, it's not going to happen, or that, but it does. And that's one of the, circles of life we go through. So keep that in mind, because it's a very difficult thing, I will tell you, to go through this. And when you lose your parents, especially both of them, like boom, boom, it does take a toll on you, no matter what you think or how you think you can handle it. You never know until you're put in that situation. But keep this in mind, they are always with you, no matter what. And it's one of the motivations, at least for me, that keeps me going. And to keep moving forward and keep on that family tradition, whether it be in racing or politics or any of the other stuff. And to try to make it better, try to make a difference. That's what Pete stood for. Again, it's a tough road to hoe to try to hold that up. But I give it a shot every time I can. And even when you're thinking of those difficult positions, or you don't think you can figure it out, you just pull back on those memories. And that will guide you through. Just like talking about Trump, he rolled that in there back 6 years ago. And it's apropos today because now you got Trump back in office, which he probably, if he would have won in 20, he wouldn't have been in office. He's in office today. And then Steyer's doing his dance and the governor's thing. And maybe Steyer helped elect Trump in 2020. Maybe he will help elect Steve and Chad Bianco in 2026 for California governor. Who knows? Maybe he saw that. Who knows? We're all going to have to play it out. But for all the people that are negative about that, even when I came up with the top 2 in June plan a year ago and everybody said I was crazy, They're not saying I'm crazy now. Pop's had a lot of crazy theories, but a lot of them came true too. Sometimes he was a little hard to understand, but you could figure it out in the wash, and you could see he could see stuff other people didn't. So, hopefully, on his second birthday, looking at the roots of the grass, like Iwaji said, is when you got problems. Hopefully we'll turn this jig around and everybody will be better off for it. Oops. Hit the wrong button. Hit the wrong button. Rest easy, Pops. We'll get the right one on. Maybe. There we go. That'll do it for today. Mandatory, you're back here in 23 hours wide. You're the best darn show in the whole wide world. Till then, see ya.
The following is a...
I hit the wrong thing too.
I had to hit the wrong button again.
Yeah, I hit the wrong outro. So.
Oh, maybe it's catching.
Yeah. But, yeah, I know it's tough, man, losing both your parents. Believe me, I know the feeling. So.
Yep.
Never get over it. Even though mine didn't die, it's like yours, back to back like that.
Right.
That's still even, 30 years apart. That's still, you never forget,
You got that right.
All right, Roy, take care. I'll talk to you Friday.
We'll see you.
Bye now.
Ugh.